Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining for our next installment of 20 Minutes for Israel from Israel. We are humbled to be joined by Yoetzet Halakha Shiffy Friedman, who is a JLIC educator in Israel on some of the campuses there, and we're honored to be able to sort of hear some of her explanations and her perspective. And as everyone knows, and Shiffy, what we've been doing is this is a time where we get to not just follow the news in Israel, but connect to the people of Israel and be able to understand a little bit what's going on, what's the mindset, and what are some of the things happening so we can continue to draw strength and be connected as we continue to renew our efforts to do whatever we can here to support people there. Thanks for joining us. How is your family holding up? How are people doing?
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This is such a special event. It just feels so heartwarming to know that you gather every day or however frequently to hear stories. Yeah, today I said to someone, I'm doing okay. And she said, I'm not doing okay. So sometimes our words are very loaded and it's hard to get across so many complex emotions, in just a few words. And we'll try, I guess, in 20 minutes today to unpack some of that. But it's a month in now. As you know, we're now today on the shloshim of the massacre a month ago. And for me personally, I have my own journey, I guess, in the ups and downs over the last month, and then relating to what the country's going through. Like today, is a reminder of how horrible things have been. I know personally, like I do feel like I have a little bit of a sense of a shigra, a routine that the first 2 weeks of the war where everything was just so upside down. And some days it does feel like we're doing okay. And thank God for school going back into session. Like when your kids don't have school and you're also trying to keep yourself together and run a community. I can talk about the work that we're doing. It's so hard, but then when they have school at least till 12:45, that's considered an almost full school day in Israel. So, but it at least gives you like a little bit of a routine that you can breathe and take a little time for yourself and do your work without your kids looking over your shoulder at your computer screen. So that's, helped me sort of find my footing in the last 2 weeks or so. So that's that. Yeah, I guess. Okay, I guess I'll say okay. And, depends on the moment.
Tell us a little about the work you're doing and what it's like now.
Yeah, sure. So you also asked, I'll share about my family because I just answered how we're doing, but we made Aliyah just over a year ago. So going through this as new Olim, in some ways it's harder, and maybe in some ways it's like we're not as connected as some people in Israel. Who maybe all their close friends are, maybe their husbands called up, maybe they're in the army, so we have like that little bit of distance that we certainly know lots of Chayalim who are serving on the front and many in our community, but in some ways being an Ole, you're less connected, and in some ways people say to you, but are you regretting it? Do you want to go back? And my answer is like, no, I really do feel like this is where I want to be right now. So my husband, Noam, and we run a community here through JLIC, which, as I'm sure you know, has many couples on campuses, over 20 campuses in the US and Canada. But now we're also in 6 communities in Israel. And I say communities because we're not always only based on campuses. In our case, we actually do work with students at Friedman University, which is formerly IDC, but we also work with lone soldiers who make Hatzalah their home and come home like every other Shabbat. Now, never, because they're in war mode, but they're part of our community, these lone soldiers. And we also have young professionals and people who just kind of live here for different reasons. So it's a community made up of like hundreds of internationals between the college ages of 18 to 23, but also all the way up to like age 28 or so. So I think what makes that sort of interesting is that many of them are here without their families and experiencing this on their own, including ones who are on the front. Of the hundreds of people in the community, we have now 50 are lochamim, they're fighters, they're on the front lines, which is incredible. It's, we're so proud of them, and it's just an amazing thing that a community like this exists that can support chayalim bodidim, lone soldiers, and it's also, of course, scary. So what we've been doing, and I'll add also, many of those people actually hadn't come back. The semester isn't really yet starting, maybe in 2 weeks or so, but many haven't come back. So we don't have those full numbers here now, but people who are here are looking for something different, looking for something more than usual, because they're not necessarily going about their routine. So when this all started, we spent a lot of our time in the beginning trying to get supplies directly, like all of us around the world, directly to the soldiers who were saying that they were lacking so many important things. We realized quickly we weren't going to be the ones who should get them the helmets and the vests that needed to be approved and the right kind and all that. But the next level type things that could really help them in fighting, but also in taking care of themselves. Like we weren't supplying the guns, but we sent all sorts of clothing and watches, and just tons and tons of money was raised. Our community members, gathered from people all over the world. And then we had drivers who were armed and would go down to these bases and deliver supplies. And then we sort of started seeing the requests decrease. And after about a week or two of that frenzy, we said that it was time to shift gears. I mean, there are still needs, of course, and the soldiers also appreciate the support if we can send just visits and food and things like that. But they pretty much have what they need, or the requests are, coming in here fewer and far between. And now we've kind of shifted gears to say, this is, unfortunately going to be a longer situation than anyone, was, I don't know, hoping. I mean, I guess that's complicated to say what we want it to be, because we want it to also be successful, but we need to be there to support each other in our community. People need so much love and care when they're going through this. So we're also just running community events in a way that feels appropriate, just finding opportunities to be together. Our WhatsApp chats are filled with people saying, I'm hosting a meal on Shabbat day, who needs a place, and people are really stepping up to take care of each other. And we're doing a lot of volunteering, giving people opportunities to volunteer by babysitting for families who were displaced, moved out of their houses in the north and south. And we're in Hatzalah, so there's 10 hotels on the beach and in the commercial area of Hatzalah. So today, actually, we raised money to send an ice cream truck to the hotels. We visited about 6 hotels, and in each place we gave them a heads up. We said, send the kids out, and they all came and had free ice cream. And it was just a little something that we could do for our community members to connect with them and to welcome them to Hatzalah and to give them a little smile. So we brought I don't know, maybe 10 people, also talk to them and dance a little, music in the background and things like that. So we've been trying to build connections with the families who are making Hatzalah their home, for this time. And it's been very uplifting for people to stay busy and to find volunteering, whether it's working with families. We've gone to the farms. I'm sure you've seen, the farmers are in need of a lot of help. And so a lot of what we've been doing is supporting our community and also planning help, sharing volunteering opportunities, going together to volunteer, because keeping busy since the beginning has been, I think, the best thing that most people could do. So there's so much good going on now, as I'm sure you see, for all the scary stories. There's just so much love and so much good out there, and to be part of it, it's uplifting.
It's incredible and inspiring, and definitely ironic to hear you discuss campus there compared to what we're hearing about campus here. But
right.
Over the last several weeks, all of us realize we're living through a dramatic chapter of Jewish history. Is there a moment or two that really sticks out for you about just being there and being part of this story that you could share with us?
Being part of the story, I guess I could. I think we consider ourselves very grateful that personally we feel safe, where we live in the like a little north of Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv has a lot of rockets. We have some, but every little thing, you feel grateful and then you feel guilty because other people have it worse. But there have been times that we've ran to the safe room, and there was one time I was driving, and it was the first time I had really been out of the house or my own house or someone else's for a siren. And so I left the car running by mistake. Like I hadn't practiced what I would do if that would happen. So I leave the car running. So the key's in my bag, but the car's running. So it's a fob and anybody could just run away with the car, but thankfully no one did. And I just started following people into this building, but they didn't know where they were going either. So we ended up in a garbage room. And thank God it didn't smell so bad. And we stayed for a few minutes. And actually my phone did alert me that there was a fall in Hatzalah. You feel like, and it ended up being false information, but there was a chance that it could have been something, even though the chance is so small that I can't say I get so nervous each time there's a siren. We have a minute and a half to get to a safe room. Everybody's been okay. But that was one moment where, and thank God also by that point, I had called 2 other family members who, to make sure everybody who was with them was like, okay. And I had heard from them before I saw that there was a fall in where we were. But that was a moment of like, oh, like somebody really does want to get me, But like I said, thankfully we do feel by this point, like, I think the early days were scarier, of course, when, things weren't yet, there were still terrorists, running loose, but for now we feel, very much protected by the Army and the Iron Dome, and, focus our prayers on the Chayalim. I'll share, I guess, one more story. I don't know if it really connects to the idea of being part of history, but for me, it was a moment of realization of what it means to be part of the community that we're a part of young people and who have come to make their life in Israel, and many, who plan to stay, many who have contributed by serving and or are now. And it's for me, it's a new home. I've been here for a year and it takes time to really feel connected to a place and to build relationships with people. And then here we are, a week into the war, and we got on the phone with someone who was in our community, and he was, being called up and on his way. And like, I just realized, wow, like, I mean, it's not like I'm sending my child off, but it's like this parent type of relationship when it's these people living in the community who are young and away from home. And I just felt this like a real sense of love for the people that we're building a community with. And, it brings people together, I think, in a way that we didn't want to experience this way, but people really need each other, I think.
Aye.
Yeah.
It's just, I think I didn't mean to throw you off with a moment of history. I think, each one of these small stories is part of that chapter. Doesn't have to be the big stories. You're in a unique position, both being in Israel, being so tied into people serving, and also obviously still are very familiar with life in America. What do you think we as American Jews need to know? What do you want to tell us? What do we want to broadcast to people here?
I think from the beginning, one thought that I kept thinking was, this is affecting all of us. We're all part of the Jewish nation, and this is affecting all of us. And yes, there are people who are way more connected to the grief, and I don't know that I don't consider myself among those people. And I think we see like everybody needs to take care of the person who's, I think Sheryl Sandberg writes about this in Option B. She talks about the concentric circles of grief. You need to look to the person who's closer to the grief to take care of them. And we're all experiencing, we're all somewhere in that diagram, you know. We're all experiencing this together. And in some cases, like you mentioned, the campuses in New York, in some cases, I feel like, you know, what's going on outside of Israel is scarier in other ways. And somebody said to me, my friends in Israel don't understand what's going on, and they keep wanting to talk about what's going on campus. I'm like, no, they're going through a lot. Like, you have to check in on your friends there too, you know, and in communities, it's not just campuses. So like you said, this is a Jewish moment in history for all of us. And I guess connected to that, the idea of always looking, you know, who can I take care of, you know, when I have the energy. We have a community member here who's been cooking every night for her roommates who are in the army. They come home every morning, I think, and sleep, and then I think they're on the night shift, so she makes them dinner before they leave, and it's amazing just what she's able to do for that small group. Everybody needs people to take care of them. Again, it's one lone soldier's her roommate, and then she took in her cousin who's by herself because the husband's called up, like all these different people she found to take care of. And she said this week her dad's coming in from Chutz La'aretz to visit her, and I said, good, you need someone to take care of you for a little bit, you know. But we can all look for those people. The challenge is that there are just so many needs, and it's hard to sort of place yourself in them. So every day, if you can do a little something, you know, I know for myself, I got a text today from the Israeli local community. That's not really part of our community and my job and my role, but it's the Israelis who also live in Hatzalah. It's a small Israeli religious community, so we're connected to them. And there's a few women whose husbands are called up, and somebody texted in the group today, we have to remember they're still going through this. We have to do more for them. You know, it's easy to forget, but like, even if it's like dinner 3 times a week, nobody has the energy to envelope someone with full-time support, because there's too many people who are just, their lives are upended for so many different reasons. So, but like, if today, you know, I was able to bring her a lasagna from my freezer, it like meant the world to her, you know. And then you find energy for something else tomorrow, and then you think of all the people who you haven't checked in on because there's just too many. It's so hard to keep up, but baby steps, you know, a little bit at a time, the more you can do. I think people do appreciate it.
Beautiful sentiment. I think it's so true, and I feel like it rings very true here also, where we struggle by the enormity of everything going on and the distance. And if we can all concentrate on just one tangible, concrete thing every day, and we go to sleep, we know that we at least did that. That's very powerful. Thank you so much. It's
so easy to feel like you're not doing enough. It's so easy because there's so much, but we all are doing what we can. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to be with us. We so appreciate it. The work you're doing is inspiring and incredible, and, you know, unfortunately so needed. Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing for Klal Yisrael and the Jewish people. We support you. We're here for you. We think about everyone there. Whatever we can do here, we are. And we continue to think of new ways. And so I just hope you can help carry that message as we share your words with our community. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And we'll see everyone again tomorrow for 20 minutes for Israel from Israel.